Hello, beautiful souls. So I'm curious, how many of us have ever asked ourselves, how am I contributing to this war? What am I doing that is causing this or making it worse? Where is my responsibility in this conflict or any other conflict? And why would I want to ask myself this question? I mean, after all, for me, the war is halfway across the world. It doesn't have anything to do with me, right? Right. Many of us might ask ourselves, how can I help with this situation? But we may never have asked, what am I doing that is making it worse, or what my own responsibility may be? For those who are familiar with quantum physics, you may have already determined the answer to this question. Or for those who follow the metaphysical understanding that the world is an illusion or a dream, or the idea of parallel worlds or timeline jumping, or what about the crazy Mandela effect? Impossible, right? Well, so just to ramble a bit, from the quantum perspective, what is known as the double slit experiment might be able to shed some light on this. It would be much better if I could show you this with graphics, but I'll do my best to explain. And I will include a link below this video that can explain this much better than I can. But anyway, what is known as the double slit experiment in physics has been taking place by scientists since the early 1800s, when they were hoping to answer the question, is light a wave or a particle? The experiment consisted of a barrier, like a piece of wood or cardboard with two slits cut into. This barrier is situated to sit in front of a screen with some space in between the two. The scientist then shot a beam of light toward the barrier with the slits. The idea was that if the light was made up of particles, when shined through the barrier with the slits, the light particles would leave two corresponding marks on the back of the screen. On the other hand, if the light was made up of waves, the waves would interfere with each other, creating a refraction pattern of several lines on the screen. Well, the results of the original experiment showed that light was a wave. In later years, with Einstein's discovery of light as photons, and again, as this experiment was performed over and over again, it was found that light could actually act as both a particle and a wave. When they fired a single photon or particle at the slit, one at a time, there obviously wouldn't be any other particles for the photon to bounce off of, yet the interference pattern of the wave still appeared on the screen. It was as if the photon knew the paths of all the other photons. Then the experiment was performed with electrons, where a detector was set up beside one of the slits to measure the photons as they went through, in order to show where they landed on the screen. And here's where things got really weird. This is where the electron leaves as a particle and then becomes a wave of potential going through both slits and interferes with itself to hit the wall. So what's that about? The very act of measuring or observing the particle means it only went through one slit, not both, as a wave. The particle acted differently because it was being watched. So we could say that the observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing. So as we said, light has two natures, wave and particle, and will act as both waves or particles depending upon whether they are observed. When light is in a wave-like state, in the same way the ridges of water cross each other, these waves interfere with each other the same way. When light is in a particle-like state, it forms into discrete packets known as photons. So as soon as the photon was being measured by a recording device, only two parallel lines appeared on the screen. Why? It was the observation of the electrons that changed their behavior from behaving like a wave into behaving like a particle. And this doesn't even have to be visual observation by a human or another conscious life form. Simply by recording it, the electrons behave like regular particles. And as soon as the recording device stops, they behave like waves again. This is called the Copenhagen Interpretation, which tells us that when a measurement is done, there is a different result in the double slit experiment than if there is no measurement instrument there. If a particle is not observed, then its behavior is completely determined by probability. So we now know that light behaves both as a wave and a particle, but we can never observe both states at one time. When we observe the light, it behaves like a particle, but as long as we don't measure it, it behaves like a wave of potential and actually exists in all of the states it can possibly be in simultaneously. This is known as superposition. So instead of the electron taking a single trajectory, it can now take all potential trajectories. Why do we care about all this? Give me another minute and hopefully you'll see what I'm trying to get at. If we can understand that the universe is made up of waves of probability coagulated into structure by an observer, in this case us, it is we who take on the responsibility of what reality becomes, decided through our own perceptions and beliefs and attitudes. And remember, I'm not asking you in any way to take on my understanding of this. These are just my personal conclusions of what I have learned over the years from many different sources. And I had to find a way of putting it all together. It works for me. So, to continue, most of you have heard of the thought experiment called Schrodinger's cat. The goal was to explain the simultaneous existence of two states where, when unobserved, the cat in this experiment can be both dead and alive. Okay, a cat is placed in a covered, sealed box with a radioactive sample that has 50% chance of decaying and killing the cat. While the box is covered, we have no idea if the cat is dead or alive. It's only once that we open the box will we be able to know if the cat made it or not. So if we think of the cat as a particle, using the superposition principle, we would say that while the box was covered and the cat was not being observed, the cat was both dead and alive, in order for it to be in all the states it can possibly be in. It is only when we lift the box to observe the cat that the superposition will collapse for it to be either dead or alive. To get even more bizarre, there is a theory called the many worlds theory, which states that anything that can happen does happen. So when Schrodinger's cat was observed, in one universe the cat was found to be dead, and in another universe the cat was found to be alive. The theory explains it like this. When the cat was in the covered box, it was in the superposition of being both dead and alive. When the box was uncovered, a split in the universe occurred, where in one universe the cat was dead and in another the cat was alive. So in this theory, every time there is more than one possible option available for the universe splits and creates copies where all possible outcomes come true. So, for example, in one world you married your high school sweetheart, and in another you didn't. There could be a world where in one of these universes you were never born, I was never born. A world where there has never been any money, where World War II never happened, or a world where Hitler won, or a world where in this same time frame humanity welcomed extraterrestrials, and now everyone has a flying car and the ETs come and go freely. I like that one. Okay, now let's ask again. How am I contributing to this war? Or to my health issues? Or to my child's unhappiness? Or to my poverty? Or my disappointments? Or to my nightmares? Whether we choose to follow the science or the metaphysics to help answer these questions, the answers will be the same. And it all stems from how we perceive the world around us. How do I see the universe, my neighborhood, my family, my friends, my life? Have we ever asked ourselves, how did I create this? Most of us only ask, why me? How did this happen to me? How does this affect me? Not, how did I do this? Like the woman whose mother had breast cancer, and while watching her mother go through her medical drama of and all the fears and pains of chemo and radiation. The woman decided that since she was her mother's daughter and they shared similar genes, that she would undoubtedly at some point express this same cancer. So in her fear, she chose to have both her healthy breasts removed, just in case. Tragically, she didn't understand that she was responsible for her own body's health, and this need have nothing to do with her mother's journey. Like most of us, she was under the false programming that our genes decide our fate, that we are our genes. So she believed the doctor when he told her that there was a genetic component to this cancer, and so could very well be in her own future. In truth, it is not the genes that determine the expression of health in the body. It's the owner of that body, you, me, us, our environment, our attitudes, our beliefs. Everything is us. We decide our fate. As Dr. Bruce Lipton's work has shown, genes have very little to do with it. Bruce Lipton is a cell biologist and the father of epigenetics, which is the study of how our behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way our genes work. In his words, our beliefs control our bodies, our minds, and thus our lives. Gene activity can change on a daily basis. So, as Lipton's work shows, if your mind's perceptions are reflected in your body's chemistry, and your nervous system reads and interprets your environment, which controls the blood's chemistry, this means that you can literally change the fate of your cells by altering the way you think, your thoughts, your beliefs. Again, I will include a link to Dr. Lipton's work below this video. He's amazing. So, once more, how can I be contributing to war and conflict? Well, do I watch the news? And if so, how do I feel while I'm watching it? What are my thoughts, my emotions, my reactions? How does my body feel? Angry? Fearful? Hopeless? And how is that contributing to the collective consciousness of the planet? So, what if I don't watch the news? Am I ignoring the suffering of others? Am I simply in denial? Does this make me a bad person? Let's go there. Does me watching the news help anyone? Is my distress going to make the situation better? From what we've just been shown, no. But it can make it worse. How did we get in this mess in the first place? Well, each one of us is a powerful creator, and each emotion, thought, and deed is registered within the field of consciousness of the planet. We are each puzzle pieces within the whole, and each of us contributes to the overall completed picture. And all of this really does get as crazy as that old question, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound? What if I suggested to you that not only does it not make a sound, there is in actuality no tree, because there is no one there to observe it, to hear it. As the double-slit experiment shows us, it's the act of measurement that allows for the waves to become particles in reality. Therefore, the tree does not exist until a consciousness observes it. Then, if he's there to watch it fall, he will hear the sound. So, without a human consciousness, would the world even exist as we know it? Well, in the most elementary sense, nothing exists without an observer. And as you can imagine, this would take more than 1 or 2 videos to discuss. It took physicist Tom Campbell a trilogy of 3 huge volumes, My Big Toe, My Big Theory of Everything, to explain this. Thomas Campbell is both a scientist of the highest caliber and a mystic. He is a consciousness researcher, and in his work, he describes the nature of our larger reality, answering the most complex problems of modern physics. His work is established on the understanding that all of reality, all of our reality as we experience it, is based upon consciousness, and that we exist in a non-physical, subjective reality, rather than an objective physical reality. So, why should we care about all these things? Whether the falling tree creates a sound. It's exactly this that shows us our responsibility and how we can help a world in crisis, and is the most important concept to understand that shows us exactly how we can help in any situation at any time. It is the collective consciousness that allows a war, and it is the collective consciousness that can stop it. To add to this, another pioneer in the consciousness field is Masaru Emoto's work with water crystals. His work demonstrates that water is shaped by environment, by thoughts and emotions, that the molecular structure of water is changed by the presence of a human consciousness. This is why we bless our food and drink. He shows that water has a memory and carries within it our thoughts. Our bodies are made up of water. Therefore, our thoughts affect our bodies and the rest of the world. He said that love and gratitude are the most important words that we can utter and should be used as guides in our daily lives. Lynn McTaggart of the Intention Experiment and several other worldwide international bestsellers took part in an experiment that was first introduced by Emoto. The intention was to purify the water of Japan's Mother Lake. The lake was polluted with putrid-smelling water that people often complained about. Emoto asked a group of 350 people to use their hearts to send love to the lake, with the intent of purifying the water. The results were astounding. The water's condition drastically improved, and the foul odor completely disappeared. The McTaggart experiment was equally, if not more, astounding, where at the end of one of the trials, the water was so much cleaner that it was difficult to tell it from a bottle of mineral water. Amazing! So imagine if a conscious, loving intent can clean up a small body of water. Think of the implications of using this technique in cleaning up our own bodies, or the body of humanity. Or if enough of us had this intent, the entire planet. So what can we take away from all of this? Why should we care about these odd little snippets of information, and whether there's a moon in the sky if we aren't there to look at it? Because understanding that this reality is not set in stone, but is malleable and can be molded and altered through consciousness and depends upon each one of us. This is the way we can help a world in crisis. What we've discussed here today brings us to understand that the most powerful use of our consciousness is not necessarily to sit and watch the news feed and sympathize or get angry, or to participate in any of the many physical protests going on across the planet, but to work with our own inner being on bringing through a more positive reality, through raising our vibration and altering the timeline, changing the truth of what's happening on the earth. Again, imagine if directing love toward a polluted body of water to purify it can work, so can directing love toward a war. Good guys and bad guys. Remember, bad guys need love too. That's how good guys turn into bad guys, through the absence of love. A broken soul is one without love. Return the love and watch that soul come alive. No one is inherently evil. They have just learned to do evil things. What might be the result if a large enough group of benevolent souls directed a peaceful intention of love toward all involved in the hostilities? There is nothing more powerful than focused intent, directed thought, congealing a new positive version of the planet and dreaming it into reality. We are masters of manifestation, responsible for everything that comes into our reality. This higher level conception overrides the lower frequencies of fear and anger, and can eventually become the dominant vibration of circumstance, the quarrels, the conflicts, even the armed confrontations of a military action. It's up to us. So the way I see it, those willing to consider all of this truly are the hope for this world. Thank you all.